Hello, friends. This is Prashant again on the channel Reliability Odyssey. So, in this talk show, The Unheard, we have one more guest today. So, I have Phillip with me, and Phillip is part of our Maximo community. And then you might have seen him answering many posts and doing other contributions in our community, especially on the More community, Maximo community. So, welcome, Phillip. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Sure. So we'll start the discussion. The first question that I have, so that everybody gets some background about your experience in EAM space. So can you please introduce yourself and can you let us know what are the different EAM products, Maximo Mobile or some other, on which you have worked so far?
Yeah, definitely. I am a Maximo guy. I'm working at Projitech, seeing a lot of different flavors of Maximo add-on products, not only IBM supported, but also third party. Lots of different mobile, especially specialized in Maximo Anywhere. And really, as that product was getting developed, went to some trainings. I've done some custom app and a lot of screen development in there. Also been certified in data splice and worked a lot with that one. I also do a lot of work with just automation scripts and integrations. I feel like early on when I started with Projitech, it was all about the file based, put the files out there, process them in and out of Maximo. Now it's really leaning, REST API, and when my team runs into issues, that's really where they look to me and say, hey, you've got the expertise there. What can we do? So it's really where I'm at, and working anything in and out of Maximo these days. Third-party products is a big focus.
So I can say that you are a hardcore tech guy, techie expert in Maximo. It does functional as well as all the technical. It's not only functional, correct? So
yeah, no, I have some of the functional, but I've got a computer science background, so the tech, the back end side kind of makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, great. So thank you for sharing about your experience. Now, the second question in line with this particular thing is that, as you have mentioned, that you are working with different flavors of Maximo, different versions of Maximo. Then you have also seen other third-party applications. So now the buzz, the hot word in the market right now is Maximo application suite, right? So what is your perspective around it? And then, how are you looking towards it?
I think the application suite is going to be a really great move for the whole Maximo community. It's kind of earth-shattering on the back end, moving from servers with, WebSphere network deployment, things that we're really all used to when it comes to the IT department. We know how to support a Windows or a Linux server. Moving into the containers, I think, is a great shift for, future of the product. But man, is it crazy on the back end when you start to compare and, what does it take to support that? I think for the end users, it's all a win because you're going to get a better, more reliable, quicker to deploy, and especially when you get to like the automatic load balancing, increasing JVMs as you need them and taking them down. It's the same experience for an end user, but you get all the benefits of it being containerized in the background. And while it's been a bumpy road so far, I think it continues to get better. Working a lot with 8.10, it's way better than, a year ago when we were on like 8.8. So overall, really great as far as future of the product. I think it's going to make Maximo be super sustainable, long term. In the short term, I think it's going to make for some really bumpy roads as people move on to it. And just making sure, the companies have the support staff, to run a containerized, to do the disaster recovery, the backup. I think it's also going to make people really have to look at their implementations and say, yeah, this is going to work. Oh, no, we might have to rewrite this thing we wrote a decade ago to make it work on the suite. So short-term challenges, but I think a great future is ahead on that front.
Sure. So you also explained the skill set challenge in a way, because for all the Maximo consultant, also there is an opportunity to skill up, learn Docker, learn Kubernetes, learn OpenShift, right? So that there is obviously
Yep.
a gap in the skill set as well. So we all have to learn. So yeah, pretty rightly said. It's initially a bumpy road, but then for longer road, I think that is going to be a happy ending for everybody. So coming back to the next question that I have. So when you have started, in Maximo, because this is one of the typical issue that people have in the packages. Like if you take Maximo, you take any other package, again for SAP, anything you will take,
Mhm.
it comes along with bundle. It comes along a baggage where you have a framework, and if you are going to develop something, you have to follow the rules. You cannot go
Mhm.
beyond this particular set, right? So it's quite a learning curve for a newbie to start, right? So the question that I have is, because everybody did that, everybody had that share, especially the guys who works on the backend, right? You need to learn a lot of things. There are a lot of challenges.
Mhm.
So what are some of the challenges that you have faced, right? And then the what are the tips that you are going to give? Because if some newbie or somebody with 1 year, 2 year experience is starting, or maybe someone is thinking to come to the technical side of Maximo, what are the things that they should be worried, should not be worried, and then what will be some tips that you would like to give, as to mitigate those challenges?
Yeah, no, I think I had a unique opportunity when I started at Progtech. Had some great, people who had worked with Maximo for, 10, 20, 30 years, especially on the functional side, but kind of understood the functional and what's it take to do an upgrade. So when I came in, I was really supporting them with the computer science background. And they skilled me up. They were great mentors on that front. Um, and I think that's really maybe the key is one, just jump in and do it. But having, a key person or a key couple of people who know the product you can go to look for advice. One of the hardest things with Maximo is there is no general guide out there.
Mm,
Here's how you should approach this situation. And even if there was, Maximo is so darn configurable that one Maximo instance looks so different than another. Especially if it's been kind of developed, as an on-premise in a vacuum system, it's like, man, I know this is an SR screen or this is a work order screen, but that does not look like what I'm used to. What's going on? Uh, Luckily, the framework is pretty good. Especially if you're using automation scripts instead of Java, you can kind of figure it out. Um, but having a mentor that you can kind of bounce those ideas off of, whether it's an online community like the More one, or just somebody who's been doing it for a while, you know, pairing the technical skills that maybe you're bringing to the table or the functional skills you're bringing to the table with kind of the other half of the coin um, is really where I've built my career. And I think
mhm,
you have to have those human connections to bounce, this idea, that idea off. Everybody's got their own best practices. Everybody's going to develop their own.
mhm,
Um, but really having that human connection, I think, is huge. And then, I think for me, I came in with a programming, a technical background. So jumping in and learning Maximo from the functional side
mhm.
was so influential in my career. Uh, Luckily, I had a support queue and I could just go grab tickets all day long and kind of work through, where are people having issues with the system. I
Mhm.
think, anytime you're supporting Maximo, there's going to be people reporting issues. Just jumping in and trying to figure those things out.
Mhm.
Bounce the ideas off the other members of your team. Go in, decompile a Java class, um, whatever it takes. One of the guys on our team, he describes it as just take the ticket in the queue that nobody else wants to take and figure it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
That's how I learned Maximo, and I think it's a great place to start as you look out and build a career in the Maximo space, especially with a year or two of experience. I mean, I started as a co-op, still in college with Progtech, so literally at ground zero, um,
Mhm.
and was able to pick it up. Uh,
Mhm.
Really in the first 2 or 3 years, you can't learn Maximo, as I'm sure you know. You can't learn it in
Mhm.
6 months. It's there's too much. It's too big.
Yeah.
Um, and even with application suite, That's
Yes.
probably another year of learning just to figure out what's going on in the background, you know?
Yeah, you're right. So some of the very important thing, and one thing I will also highlight. So now still I will say the documentations are much better. Still there are people complain.
It
I know
is.
people complain that there is no sufficient documentation. But when I started 15 years back, that time the only documentation that we had was the class files, and you need to literally decompile everything, and then there will used to be like, even if you have to make something read only, some field read only, right? Then most of the time
Mm-hmm.
people used to just write a custom class for that, right? So there was no condition
Yep.
expression, and then over a period of time, but that has come as a practice when, because still now I decompile the class file and read the logic, because maybe that habit came, and if you do it, I believe that is very important point that you have said, that you will learn a lot about that. So, but yes, as the
Oh yeah,
other
you
point
learn
is
so
very,
much.
yeah, very unique point you have said, that have a mentor or have a person to go, which is a very unique perspective that you have brought, that it will ease out your frustration as well, right? Because I know when you are stuck in something, it is frustrating, right? And then someone to listen to you and to motivate you, that particular person will be very important. So I think very unique perspective related with the
Yeah.
human connection and having a mentor. Great.
Yeah, one of my mentors when I started at Project Tech was Stephen Shaw, and it was
Mm-hmm.
amazing. I could spend all morning working on an issue, and maybe we'll sit down at lunch or something and mention it to him. He'd be like, "Oh, let me just send you a link, or go look in this
Yes.
corner of a Maximo environment." He'd be like, "Okay, so I spent 4 hours, you spent 4 seconds,
Mm-hmm.
and you got over the hump or bounced that idea, and just push you right over the edge."
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Teamwork is so important, in my opinion, and the
Yeah.
frustration is a big one too. I'd not even thought of. It's amazing how frustrated you can get, and then just be like, here's all my legwork, and then it's like, oh yeah, let me just connect the dots for you. And
Yeah.
I think
Absolutely.
somebody else, a fresh perspective, makes a huge difference there.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Very, very important and new perspective that you have. I am asking this question to many people. Everybody gave me every answer, but this is a really unique one that you have came up here. I'm sure people who are listening will, if they apply, they will for sure have some help on that on the end. Now, the next question in line with this, as you said, resources. We have now some great resources. Okay, well, I say still there are not many resources, but on the other hand, now I can say that there are many great resources. For example, more
Hmm.
Maximo community. And I have seen that you also respond to queries, right? So and the other part of the story, which people generally do not realize, that it is not a easy job, because everybody have their own projects, everybody have their own responsibilities. And then if you are going to a community and you are writing something, sometimes you have to write a script for someone, right? If you are investing some time, that is a community work that you are doing out of completing all what you have to do. So it needs some motivation. What is the motivation when you do it, for the knowledge sharing and this kind of community help?
I think it's kind of twofold for me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going there, trying to help the Maximo community, add value to the general conversation. But I think my real motivation there is kind of selfish in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
By going out and looking for questions to answer, um, I'm learning a little bit when I do, dig into it. But really, it's looking at all the other great answers that are out there. I
Mm-hmm.
probably read 10, 15, maybe even 20 different threads before I find one that I actually feel like I'm qualified to answer. And,
Mm-hmm.
somebody like yourself hasn't already gone out there and put a good answer on, right? I'm not trying to restate, what five other people have said. They
Mm-hmm.
probably said it better than I'm going to say it. But reading those different responses and seeing a couple of the different perspectives, how did they solve it, or what did they suggest to go look at?
Mm-hmm.
That is it's a selfish learning tool to just absorb that knowledge. And, while I'm there, if I do have something to add to the conversation or some perspective to add, definitely going to put it out there. Would love to just increase the general IQ of the whole Maximo community. And I do
Mm-hmm.
think working, cloud and hosted and kind of seeing the future with the application suite, it does allow me to bring in a different perspective than maybe somebody who's, working with a giant on-premise system.
Yeah.
I've never worked with a system that has 100 JVMs. I'm not exactly
Mm-hmm.
sure what's required there. But if you
Mm-hmm.
need to run in the cloud, I got you. I
Yeah.
can provide that perspective. And I,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes see solutions, you mentioned the Java classes. When it comes to upgradability, I'm not a huge fan of going with a Java class. I'd rather go with an automation script because I think
Mm-hmm.
it's going to upgrade better. It's going to be easier. Um, and that's another perspective that I'm bringing out there and try to add to the general conversation. Um, Again, maybe that's a little selfish too, because I want everybody to be in, the project cloud and, all of that. But um, I really think the learning and picking up on the tips and tricks is probably a larger motivation than, while still selfish, a large motivation of contributing out there.
Sure. Okay, I got this. So this is also, this happens, right? When you are, yeah, obviously there will be a thread and you will be reading it through. So you might be learning something new as well. So pretty valid point. But you mentioned one thing about the cloud, right? And then you also, we know that you work with so many partners, you work with so many customers, and then you know that you are already might be having projects which you are doing for mass. Then
Hmm.
and then this is a typical. In my perspective, I may be wrong, but what I feel is that OpenShift and Mass is more inclined towards cloud setup rather than an on-prem.
Hmm.
Because even if you see the numbers, what it need to run on the cloud, even though it is big one or even on the cloud, but still, on the on-prem it is even bigger. So the one best way to host the Mass is on cloud, and then there comes an upgrade cycle which is not same. There are a lot of differences, as you already mentioned, right? That how mass 8.8 was, and then you are seeing new value add as 8.10 came. So when the customers, or if someone is listening this to this discussion, if they think that, okay, I have a maximum on-prem system, and then I want to go to mass, so what will be some of the tips or maybe some of the advices that you want to give them, so that they are first of all mentally prepared, and then second thing is that they know what is coming, because there is a platform shift, right? So there's a lot of shift happening when you go right away from your on-prem to cloud, and specifically when the technology stack itself is changing. So what will be some of the tips that you would like to give, especially for folks who are looking to upgrade their maximum expenses to mass?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. Um, I think there's obviously the platform change. I'm going to kind of set that one off to the side a little bit. That is something you've got to figure out. Whether you use a cloud provider or AWS, run it on premise, there's a platform change. There's a lot to learn there. But I think there's a lot of work you can do in your 7.6 environment today
Mm-hmm.
that is going to prepare you. And the big part of that is what's changing as far as, features that are available or not available. And then what is your system doing to either reach out to other systems or what other systems are reaching out to you? And really,
Mm-hmm.
at that point, we're talking authentication, integration, and mobile product.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at those, every connection you have, either in or out of your system, is going to be a great place to start.
Mm-hmm.
I think taking a mobile application as an example, how is your mobile application connecting to Maximo? I think I've worked with maybe 8 or 9 different mobile applications. The newer applications are all connecting with REST API.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and REST, in my opinion, is best. If you can do a REST API connection with an API key, you're
Yeah.
going to be future-proofed all the way through into mass and probably for the very far foreseeable future.
Mm-hmm.
If you're using something where you're connecting or interacting with a database, how are you going to do that uh, when the database is not right next to maybe your purchasing system? It's
Mm-hmm.
more of a cloud question than a mass question, but
Mm-hmm.
how do you balance all the connections in and out? in general, I think with Mass, they've done a pretty nice job of, on the integration front, as long as you're using an API and you can use an API key, it's probably going to work.
Mm-hmm.
But if, maybe you're coming in through RMI, that's no longer going to be available. So really assessing those connections
Mm-hmm.
in and out of the system, absolutely huge. And we've had some success, looking at some systems and saying, yeah, these 5 things will work. This one might need to be rewritten. Authentication's kind of the same thing. Whether you're going to cloud or it's just for the application suite, your
Mm-hmm.
VMM sync is no longer there. So,
Mm-hmm.
okay, do we want to move to LDAP sync? Do we want to write just a REST integration
Mm-hmm.
to move those users in and out? I'm seeing more and
Yeah.
more people want to go with the REST integration because then we
Mm-hmm.
don't have to expose the Active Directory. They're using SAML anyway. They don't want that connection. So bring that in. Another wild card that I think is maybe overlooked really easily is Mass is going to move to S3 buckets for attached
Mm-hmm.
documents rather than file share. And you
Yeah.
can do this in 7612. Really, all of these things you can do in
Yeah.
7612 to prepare. Um, but that can be a pretty big shift because people rely on, data splice is a good example. Rather than pull files through the APIs or through any of the Maximo framework, they just reach out and grab it from the file system. You make it accessible, it's good to go. As soon as
Mm-hmm.
you move those documents out to an S3 bucket, you pretty much have to pull it through the Maximo framework.
Yeah.
So what are you using that needs access to those attached documents, and how can you pull those in? That's been kind of a surprising big shift, and you could totally do it on 7.6 and go about it that way. The capability, the functionality is all there. So I think, yeah, really just looking at all that. The other thing that I think is going to be a big challenge that people can do today is what are you putting into your Maximo ear? What are you putting into your Maximo install? And how is that going to map into Mass? There's a
Mm-hmm.
great functionality in the suite where you can provide a zip and it will lay it into your install container and build it into the ear.
Yeah.
But even knowing what it is that you need to give Mass in a zip form to lay into your ear can be a big question. I've brought on clients and during the implementation phase, they will just zip up their whole SMP folder and
Okay.
provide it over and be like, we don't know what's in here, but
Yeah.
there's something. We know there's stuff. And, you know, as an implementer, you end up doing a win merge or a compare between
Yeah.
the two just to try to figure out, oh, you put 5 extra icons. That's the only thing we cared about. Or yeah, you wrote a lot of Java over here and
Yeah.
it's, 5, 6, 7 years old. So I think starting to look at that side of your implementation too can make a huge difference. Just assessing where the risk is when you do go um, to either cloud or Mass or cloud and Mass at the same time.
I think some of the points that you have raised is very practical, and then very very valid points, right? When the implementation will actually happen, then people will think about it. Oh, what I have to do? As you gave the example that you can zip a custom archive, but then what
Mhm.
you are putting in that archive is something that you have to say. Maybe if you have Java class, is it the right time to convert to automation script? Because when the Java class was written, that time there was a lot of functionality which was not there. But now you can do so many things with the automation script itself, right? So very, very valid points. Some of the points, and especially the S3, I really like that point that people do not think that what is going to happen and they will do something. It is always good to think about the future. Maybe you start doing that particular thing with 7.6 environment so that you are knowing that how this particular thing will work, and then you will be ready. I think some of the great points, very very valid points that you have shared. So thank you so much for sharing this knowledge with us. And I have one last question. So I want to know that. So this is just on a personal front. Apart from doing Maximo and doing all other technical jobs, what are the personal timeouts that you take, and what are your hobbies? What you do, when you have some free time?
Free time is a concept that's kind of
Yeah.
foreign to me right now. So I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old,
Oh,
And
okay.
perhaps they are truly the hobby, being the family man, and between taking care of the yard, the house, kids, and the dog, um, free time's limited. Um, but absolutely love going out, doing things with them. We have a conservatory and a zoo pass this year, so anytime we can get out,
Mhm.
enjoy time with both of our girls, uh, that's really how I like to spend the free time. Um, I suppose you could say I'm into beer culture a little bit too. So
Okay.
if I can combine going to like a nice outdoor tap room,
Mm.
enjoy some time outside with a couple cold drinks, uh, I'm all about that. So family time, I suppose, is the big hobby there.
Amazing. Yeah. So thank you for sharing. Uh, yeah. So I think, yeah, this is it. I had these questions. Again, I will really appreciate and I will thank you for joining today, taking some time out, sharing your knowledge and sharing your experience with us. So thank you once again, Philip. And to my friends who are watching this video, I think you can, you know what you have to do. You have to like the video, share with the community, and then subscribe to the channel. And I will be back with one other guest and with lot of discussion around Maximo, Mass, or maybe some other EAM products. So you guys stay tuned and we'll meet again. So thank you so much, Philip, for today's discussion. I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Yep. Thank you. Bye.